Zoid star, dark sky crackles. Titan machine beast, rises steel monster. Engines scream, black smoke suffocates. Silverman laughs, power fuels the hate. Metal claws tear through city streets. Zoid life scatter, hide in empty ruins. Beast unstoppable roars, echoes fate, destruction path. Iron doom awaits. The black Zoid machine indents. Shadow swallows, sun death descends. Silverman's wrath, world's cruel bend. Abyss calls life rescind. Hope shattered beneath grinding gears. Echo in void, silent fearful tears. Zoid souls ripped a machine's binge. Darkness reigns, no revenge. Wings of shadow, Zoid star's grave. Lightning flashes, beasts enslaved. Cold steel, heartless metal skin. Silverman's grip won't sind. The black Zoid machine atoms. Shadow swallows, sun death descends. Silverman's wrath, world's cruel bend. Abyss calls life rescind. Rescind. Noise. The black Zoid machine that ends. Shadow swallows, sun death descends. Silverman's wrath, world's cruel bend. Abyss calls life rescind. Hope shattered beneath grinding gears. Echoing void, silent fearful tears. Zoid souls ripped a machine's binge. Darkness reigns, no revenge. Wings of shadow, Zoid star's grave. Lightning flashes, beasts enslaved. Cold steel, heartless metal skin. Silverman's grip won't rescind. Revenge. 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 Wings of shadow, Zoid star's grave. Lightning flashes, beasts enslaved. Cold steel, heartless metal skin. Silverman's grip won't rescind. Won't rescind. discuss.